What is the most OP build for Dimitri in Fire Emblem 3 Hopes? I mastered every single class so I can come up with the best build possible for Dimitri. And am I so glad that I did? Dimitri is a beast. For starters, we're going to be using the class Great Lord. I know it's no big surprise that the class made for Dimitri is his best class, but building out the class to its awakened potential requires some ability sacrifices. We're using Dimitri's weapon, Ardbar. I hope I pronounced that right. Lethal Blow allows you to damage enemies when they're guarding, and it comes with the combat art, Atrocity, which is extremely strong and necessary for this build. As for the accessory, I'm using Storm Dragon Sign. It gives a 10% chance to do slightly more damage with our strong attacks, which you're going to be using a lot. However, there's a better option. The problem is, I already used it on Edelgard's build, so if you're not using Edelgard, the better option would be the Water Dragon Sign, which gives you a 10% chance for a combat art to be ready right after use. If I had to choose between the two of them, the accessory is way more important for Dimitri than it is for Edelgard. Since Dimitri has low resistance, you're going to want to use the battalion that resists tomes. As far as the combat arts, they're fairly straightforward. We have Atrocity, which is a super strong attack that rivals some of the best combat arts in the entire game. Paraceline is also very strong, but its true strength comes in the form of the instant kill. This gives you a chance to instantly defeat non-commander units. Dimitri has 3 unique abilities, the first of which is Azure Lightning. Azure Lightning imbues your attacks with the lightning effect. King's Might greatly increases your damage to enemy HP and stun gauge when you send them flying. Rain gives you a 50% damage boost when ordered to attack. And as for the class abilities, Charm as usual restores HP to surrounding allies when an enemy commander is defeated. Swordbuster gives you an 100% boost against swords, which is also pretty nice. Now let's talk abilities. As usual, at the end of the video I'll be telling you where I got them all. Arms Thrift slows down the durability loss when using combat arts or magic. This is super important because the entire build is based around the combat abilities. Even more so than every other build I've done, to be honest. King's Ploy increases the number of lance throws during your Great Lord class action. This is super important too, since that class action is super strong. Savior of the Meek makes it easier to knock back enemies based on the difference between your enemy's strength. Dimitri has very high strength. In fact, mine's capped, and I barely added any stat boosting items to him. Knocking an enemy back means a higher chance to send them flying to activate King's Might. Fiendish Blow boosts the power of your elemental effects. An Essence of Lightning produces stronger lightning-based combat arts, magic, strong attacks, and class actions. I'm gonna skip Piercing Cry just for a moment and go to Absorb Strength. Absorb Strength grants a minor boost to strength each time you defeat an enemy commander, and it lasts for the entire battle. More strength means more knockback, and more knockback means more King's Might activation. This is where the build gets really good. Piercing Cry restores the Awakening gauge every 800 hits, which is a pretty regular thing to do. Forethought restores the Awakening and Warrior gauges when using combat arts and magic, which I already mentioned is your core gameplay loop for this build. It's all about your combat arts. Cyclical Awakening temporarily increases the Awakening gauge after you've used said Awakening. And Panache restores even more Awakening gauge in proportion to the number of enemies defeated in a warrior special. You're using your combat abilities in battle, which means you're going to hit a lot of enemies, proccing both Piercing Cry and Forethought. This comboed with the dishes that boost the Awakening gauge in battle is a crazy combination. Then once you finally do get your Awakening, you wreck the field for a little while and end up with a full warrior gauge. This gives you 3 chances to use the warrior special to defeat enemy commanders and large amounts of enemies, proccing Piercing Cry yet again, as well as getting the boost from Cyclical Awakening. To put it simply, Dimitri is able to borderline stay in Awakening for the entire battle, and during the little bit of off time you do have, everything you do is going to super boost your next Awakening gauge. Now let's talk about where I got all these lovely abilities. Arms Thrift is from Archer, King's Ploy from High Lord, Savior of the Meek from Great Lord, and you're also going to get your Paraceline combat skill here as well. Fiendish Blow and Essence of Lightning is obtained through Warlock. Piercing Cries from War Master, Absorb Strength from Dark Bishop, Forethought from Trickster, Cyclical Awakening from Holy Knight, and finally Panache's from Dark Knight. I hope you enjoyed today's build. If you did, drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be releasing new builds every day until we're out of characters. Speaking of which, let me know in the comments which build you want to see next. I have a couple characters that have already been suggested, so make sure to let me know if you want to see any specific ones. That way I can add them to the list.